and then come back later and ask for a special permit to actually change that for a fee. Or if they transact the property and a different owner comes in and they want to do something special, which is what the flexibility we're trying to create, they can do the same thing and say, okay, I'd like to change this, and here's the fee, and this is what I want to do. So it's a perpetual, it's not a one and done scenario. But the benefit of it, in my mind, is that it gives people flexibility. It doesn't tell them they can't do it. It just gives them a cap on how much they can do, as long as you're willing to, pay the fee, whatever that is.
Any other questions on this? All right. Option number 4. So this is incentive based for the tree fund. So there's no hard native percentage mandate. If you achieve 80+% native voluntarily, you earn a reduced tree fund contribution on this. The pros is that it rewards strong performers without penalizing all owners equally, removes staff burden of making subjective approval decisions, addresses the concern that small properties face disproportionate impact, could organically drive higher compliance rates over time, because again, this is a carrot. And it preserves property rights while aligning financial incentives with city values. But the cons is that there's no guaranteed floor, could result in very low native plant uptake across the city. The tree fund is a crucial resource for reducing contributions there could have downstream impacts that we don't want to happen. The incentive may not be compelling enough to change the developer's behavior at scale. It's difficult to enforce or track without a baseline requirement, and could favor large developers who could strategically optimize to hit the 80% from there. Option 5. So I said the last one was a bit of a carrot. This is the stick. So monetary disincentive for non-native heavy design. So this basically says that there's no native percentage mandate on this at all. Owners can choose. Owners choosing really heavy non-native plants would just incur an additional fee or cost associated with it. So the pros on this: fully preserves property owner rights and design freedom. It's discourages non-natives without override prohibition through financial signals and fees. Removes all staff judgment calls on themed or non-native designs. It's arguably probably one of the more simple and transparent options available for us. If you want to plant what you want, you just pay for it. And also the revenue from fees could support Greenbelt or Tree Fund or anything else that we decide, or that's decided from there. The cons: there's no guaranteed baseline of native plant use. Owners with deep pockets can simply just pay and plant whatever they want. And that undermines the goal of potentially an ordinance like this. A fee structure may be hard to really calibrate. So if it's too low, this will just be ignored. And if it's too high, then litigation, courts, lawyers, all that good stuff. Does not actively promote native plant knowledge or awareness. It's the weakest ecological outcome from the options discussed so far, and could be perceived as selling exemptions from environmental standards. And the last one.
Hold on one sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Option 6, invasive species ban only, and then just encourage native. I would argue that this is pretty close to where we are right now, minus the invasive species component of this. But in summary, it's just saying, like, invasive species are not allowed. We would love to see native species, but there's no mandate or incentive to really for private commercial or industrial use on this. The pros is that it addresses the most urgent and universally agreed upon problem, again, the invasive species ban. It's from a regulation standpoint, it's minimal in a small burden no burden really on private property owners from a native perspective, but still from an invasive perspective, yes. There's no staff judgment or subjectivity that comes into this. It's easy to understand, administer, and enforce. The invasive ban alone would deliver, a good, measurable ecological improvement for us. And it leaves maximum design freedom for commercial development. But the cons, somewhat similar to what we've been talking about so far, is there's no floor on native plant use. The outcomes of the adoption of native plants could vary wildly based on the owner and the decisions made by that owner. It would represent a missed opportunity to build a lasting native landscape identity for Peachtree City. It does not align with the original policy intent of the commission and the council. It may not satisfy community survey values across green spaces. It has limited financial or environmental return on investment relative to the stronger standards, and encourages but cannot require the behaviors that the city wants. So the next steps, which we're about to do step 1 right now, is really just let's talk about and debate these options. We can rank, obviously, again, I'm going to go back to the overall list in just a moment, and we can talk about the pros and cons of each one of these and maybe come up with something that will meet, most of you voters can approve on for this, and then have a consensus on the way how we treat native species. Then I'm going to revise, based on tonight's meeting, I'm going to revise the draft ordinance. Again, what was in the agenda, the packet was just a baseline. I'm going to go back and revise that. Then we'll schedule a public hearing where the staff places this item on a future agenda as a future formal public hearing to allow the community to comment prior to a final vote. And then our recommendation will then move forward to City Council. Well, they'll consider it and go from there. So with that, toss it over to you guys to see if there's any thoughts in terms of these options, what you guys like, what you would not want to see, and all that good stuff.
I'm just going to go ahead and open up the floor to the commissioners. You want to go ahead and?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Ken for putting this together. It's a really nice effort here. Really appreciate this. I just have a quick question for staff before we maybe get into this, because I do like Commissioner Halverson's special use permit idea. After a landscape plan is submitted to us, and if a commercial property owner wants to come or wants to change their plan, is there any requirement currently for them to come back to us in any way?
If it substantially changes the plan, yes.
Okay, and how is that enforced? Like, because if what does substantial mean?
So if there is a heavy draw of removal of trees, changing trees, things of that nature, yes, they are required to come back to you all for that change of the landscaping plan.
For an approval.
Yes. Now, if there's a tree that has died and there's needing to replace it or remove it, that doesn't come back to you.
Yeah, so small changes, little parts of the property wouldn't be a big deal, but a larger scale
Correct.
change. Either they, someone in the community might report them to code enforcement, I would imagine, or the property owner themselves, if they're aware of the requirement to come back, would do so willingly before they did that. Okay, that's the only threshold question I have.
Hans,
Yeah, do something else.
so
Go, Commissioner.
just thinking about all these, in terms of kind of the order of things that I think that I would like to see in it. And this is mostly opinion right now, but I like the goal where we push for an overall higher percentage of native plantings, number one. And even if we have to offer incentives to do so, push them in that direction. An ordinance that's easy to understand both by the developer and easy to enforce by the staff. And so having a standard baseline and understanding that standard baseline on both parties' part, I think is really important in order for both compliance as well as enforcement. Something that doesn't, as you say, one of those options, it doesn't undermine our overall goal. But also something that does allow for some percentage of individuality. And for example, I know that many businesses have beds all around their properties that are annual beds, that they change out every season, so to speak. So we wanna, we don't wanna take away something that they themselves wanna personalize their property with either. So those are kind of like 4 things that came to my mind immediately from this basic discussion.
Absolutely, good.
All right, so where this kind of started was Ken had a great presentation, and then I came on board. And we are kind of on different ends of the spectrum. And me, not so much a distaste for native plants, but we had a builder that wanted to do a Japanese theme around their hotel. And I feel that what we were presenting originally was too restrictive. I believe that we should not have invasive plants anywhere. I believe the city should have full control over city-owned property and whatever they want to do. I fully agree with that. I still think that a privately owned business should have the right to do what they want with their land. That said, Ken has also come up with some great arguments and concerns over the last several months. And I think that I'm willing I have moved my opinion up from number 6 to something in between 2 and 3. If we had, I think 60% is a fine number, and I like the idea of the special use space. If we did something like that was an incentive or a detriment, however you want to look at it, that gave them more room, I think 10% is almost unworthy. It doesn't give them enough room. Like, go ahead, put one Japanese pine out there and you're done. But I do like the idea of coming and meeting in the middle, and I would support something in the middle there between 2 and 3, which I think is a significant jump from where I was.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with Commissioner Allen that the compromise situation that allows a little bit more flexibility is, at least in my opinion, what I would like to support. I do really like the special use permit, but I worry about the burden that might place upon code enforcement if someone were to say, well, X, Y, or Z individual is not meeting this, they don't have the permit, and then there has to be some sort of back and forth about how you calculate the percentage of plants on each parcel. And I don't know if that's something that has been considered.
Yeah, I mean,
Here.
to submit a special use permit, you'd have to submit a landscape plan which shows exactly what it is, where it is, just like you would a regular landscape plan that they would approve. So they'd go out there and say, yep, that's that, and that's that. I mean, it's very spelled out. It's not I'll just do 25% and I'll let you know what I did later. You have to actually submit it for them to be able to review and approve it.
Okay, so this is a going forward requirement.
Right.
And as a permit, so folks that have the situation that they have currently, it's not something that's gonna apply to them, only
Well, it
if they're
could.
redeveloping.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to come back and do something that they didn't think they could do previously,
Yeah.
and they would say, hey, that's a great idea, I'd like to do this, and then they would get a landscape architect to
So
submit it.
redevelopment and,
Mhm.
new development.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So it's fully transparent to anybody reviewing it and approving it.
And then if there are changes, they'll already have that design in their pocket.
Correct.
And they can bring that up and say, well, we only changed these few little
Right.
things. Yeah. If we're going to do a special use permit, I'd wanna know where we were gonna put the fee.
Right.
And I would support a higher percentage than 25. I don't think 25 is enough to give the creativity that we've seen in other proposals.
That's why I was going with the 60.
Yeah.
Sure. So that was, I kind of did the 70, I was suggesting the 75-25 just because it was trying to meet the spirit of the original proposal and give the flexibility at the same time. If we want to lower that slightly, I'm totally open to that. And I don't know 2 things. What is a usual and customary fee that we would charge for this? Is it $1,000 a percentage? Is it $10,000 a percentage? More than that, I don't know. Probably not. We don't want it to be prohibitive. We want to incentivize people to do this, to actually contribute and, you know, help the city in whatever bucket it wants to be in. And then how does the city actually implement that is the next question, right? So, and that's out of my purview, so I don't know. But those are the two questions that I have.
Ken, what do you think about my proposal?
I like your proposal. I like where you're going as well on this. You know, I think that meeting somewhere in the middle is the best. Is something I would absolutely support on this. And I think, again, you know, we've had a lot of ideas thrown out over these year at this point, and I think that meeting somewhere in the middle could be really good on this. I would say though, if I had to pick one of these, I do like 3, but you know, the more I think about it, again, you know, if, let's say there's a monetary fee for the special use permit, it favors large parcels and large developers so much more from a monetary perspective. Because again, you know, if we're saying like, okay, a certain percentage of your land is, you know, $1,000, you know, that you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck on a large property percentage wise than a smaller one on that. So
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah. Sorry, maybe didn't describe that the best, but
Yeah.
yeah. I would say this: if I had to pick one of these, I'm leaning towards number 2. Just something that's just straight up saying, hey, you just need to have a percentage of native. It's clean, it's easy, and you know it eliminates a lot of the potential complexity that can come from 3, 4, and 5 on here. And as well, something to consider is that, you know, even passing something like number 6 is a huge change from where we've been already on this. And, you know, we can always go test something like number 2 and just come up with a percentage on it, and it can be revisited in the future. But that's already a significant change from what we have today, which is really nothing.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, we're going from having nothing at all to having at minimum an invasive species ban, which is excellent, and then seeing where we can fall, you know, or come to a consensus where we come up with a percentage or something like that. You know, I think the thing we can look at also is it kind of exactly what you said. You know, if we go ahead and recommend something and it goes forward, and we see that I don't want to say it's not working or sees that it needs to be tweaked in one way, shape, or form, you know, we are able to go back in and change it, to update it, you know, along the way. So, I mean, if we look at our ordinances, they're written in stone, but they're not quite. You know, they are kind of living documents as we go forward with them also.
Sure.
So, and I mean, just banning the invasive species is a win for Peachtree City.
Yeah, it would be huge.
Yeah.
Can you put number 2 back up? I think number 2 is well thought out.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I do like number 2 because it's easy for everybody to understand. And most of all staff, it's, you know, just easier for everybody.
Well, I guess the only, this kind of falls into maybe some of the others, but I mean, do we want to have something that is specific for city property, where it is a little bit different than the 60% and keep the 60% commercial? I mean, we have that option to look at something like that, saying, hey, you know, it might be a little bit more work, but is it something that we'd want to think about? I don't know.
So we have comments we would like to add.
Sure,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
Apologize. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, several things. one though about the city property. There's already something in the ordinance that says that we don't have to follow our own ordinances. So that would be a conflict. And
Really?
some.
On this
and-
topic specifically, or on any topic?
and some.
That's every
any
city.
topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
The home rule
some,
thing.
some other city staff had concerns about that as well. You want me to read some of them? Sure. Originally, whenever this original draft was put out, last year, it was sent to, city arborist, the city engineer, code enforcement, and the public works director. And, the public works director was concerned about, the city having to use 100% native species requirements. He said they do make every effort to use native plantings, but they frequently rely on things such as arborvitae for screening. And he said he was pretty sure those weren't native. The city arborist said he didn't think we needed to include sweet gums on the invasive plant list because he says it is not. He realizes most think it's a nuisance tree, but it does provide benefits to the environment. And I think he says it is native to the southeast. Let's see, for us to prohibit it or have it removed, he didn't think we needed to go that route. Let's see, the city engineer was concerned that we make sure we're not inadvertently prohibiting required plants or trees or grasses that are listed in our stormwater manual for ponds or from the erosion control manual, I guess otherwise known as the Blue Book and the Green Book. And then code enforcement said he listed a couple of things that he didn't see on the grasses list that he thought was one of the main culprits that people were generally looking to keep out. And I can't actually pronounce all of these three items that he listed, but there were about 3 species that he listed.
Which I believe we added to the list after
Did
we got
you?
that. Yep.
Okay,
And I believe we did remove the sweet gum from the
Yeah.
ban list also, so we took that into consideration.
Right.
Yep.
okay, so this is a revision after that, those comments? What was in the packet?
I believe so.
Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha. Then just some things that I noticed. I guess we have concerns in general about not having a professional, say somebody like is gonna be helping us with the UDO to really thoroughly review perhaps a draft and make sure that it is cohesive with other sections in the ordinance. So we think other sections of this particular chapter need to be reviewed to make sure there's not conflicts. I pulled, I noticed a few myself. For instance, we have this list of invasive or prohibitive invasive species, yet we have a section in the ordinance for tree protection on public property, and it has a list of recommended plants. It actually includes a few of the things that are in this list, so that section would need to be updated. Maybe that list is removed altogether, or at least updated to not include, so there's some conflicts here and there that we would want to make sure, that somebody a little more, that's professionally does this kind of thing can check for us. So that, that was a big concern. And then also, just making sure that some of the statements that are made, whether that is actually a city practice or not. For instance, I think some of, one of the comments that I pulled out was, one thought we had too was, do we need to add anything to the definitions section of this chapter? For instance, define native plant, define invasive plant, and maybe there are some other terms that we might want to define. Wherever we cite zoning ordinances applying to certain zoning sections, we should include all of them. For instance, one section said GC, GI, and LI. We probably should go on to list all of them. We have found ordinances lately that actually don't list, I think was it the sign? Something in the fencing ordinance that actually didn't apply to a limited use residential district, but we were applying it until it was pointed out that, you know what, this section doesn't actually apply to that. So then we had to allow some things that we hadn't intended to allow, until we fixed it. There's that. Let's see. Oh, back to what I was talking about before. Section 135, for example, in the proposed ordinance, says something about how it would apply to things that we require landscape plan reviews for, having to do with subdivisions, common areas. We actually don't require landscape plans for residential subdivisions unless it's a condition of a rezoning. So there's a little nuance to that. Just
But I thought we
things like
covered
that.
Yeah, I thought this was only going to be applicable to commercial and industrial.
Yeah. We
Those,
decided to leave
those were some of my
residential.
red marks.
I asked that question last time, yeah.
Okay.
These are all good points, though.
Yeah.
Laura.
Yeah.
Just, just
Yeah,
things we wanted to
absolutely.
bring up. So before you actually vote on something,
Yeah.
a draft is great.
Sure.
I think it's a good baseline, but, we would want it to be reviewed more
100%.
thoroughly.
Right,
Okay.
and so
Yeah.
one of the things that Laura and I chatted about earlier today about this project or this particular item, I want to be clear that when it comes to enforcement, it has to be enforceable, right? It can't be just a adopted code. It has to make sense and make sure that it's something that when we're here before the judge for citations or we're, explaining it to an applicant or a property owner, that it makes clear sense to them and it's not having conflicts. So one of the things that we're doing when drafting a section of a code that's a new section, we're technically reviewing the entire zoning code because you have to read several chapters to see where the other conflicts are lying. And so that's pretty much what Laura is referencing, how she's gone in and found several other sections where there's some conflicts. So I just want to say that, whatever is to be planned, to be proposed to council, just ensure that it's something that, in fact, I believe it was mentioned by our commissioner here, that it needs to be something that can be enforced.
And I think that's very good points, and there's still some work to be done. And as Kenneth said, this is a discussion on what we have now, and kind of there will be some revisions to it in another draft before we look to even go forward to recommend anything at that point in time. But those are some good points. I guess we run, if you're looking at any conflicts within the other ordinances, I mean, that's something we run into with anything. And it's something that you're right, absolutely needs to be done with any changes to any of the ordinances that any of us look to do, whether they come from council or whether they come from the commission up. So that's a key part that will have to be done, no doubt. And I'm sure, as you said, there are some references elsewhere that it may either contradict or maybe overlap with what's in place already. So that will need to be looked at. And yeah, enforceability. I think that's a key part also. We want to make sure that code enforcement, as they're going out there, is going to be able to go ahead and actually enforce this. Are they going to be going out there with a list of, native plants, and does this match up with what it is because it's not on there? We want to make their job as easy, as well as staff's job as easy as possible, just because of everything that they have to take a look at. So I think that's a very good point. How do we give them the tools to go ahead and enforce something like this?
And I think in general that might be difficult for, I have a landscape architecture background, so I am familiar with a lot of the plants, not so much these grasses and things like that, but a lot of shrubs and most trees I can identify just by looking at them, but the code enforcement team doesn't have that kind of background.
Right.
So, when I don't know if y'all are aware, I do landscape inspections after they've installed what you all have approved, and so there's that level, and I'm comfortable with that, but the next person, the next senior planner might not be a landscape architect, in which case you might have to hire change Bob's job, change the city arborist's job to include landscape inspections or something to that nature. But yeah, code enforcement in general might have a tough time. I mean, they know what bamboo is, kudzu, things like that. So they definitely could easily identify
So-
some of the most common things, but.
Can let me ask a question of staff then. We've been talking about this, like Ken said, for over a year. And we got to a point where we thought we were good to go, and you've put up some hurdles. What is the next step in your eyes?
So I don't know if those are hurdles or identifying where we have seen where, you know, we've given some thought to it. It's not just these two staff members here that seeing these things.
Oh,
Okay, so
I'm not
there's an
questioning your
engineer,
judgment.
I understand, there's an engineer, there's a arborist that she's mentioning and such. So when we are taking looks at these things and we're trying to ensure that we are able to do that, we bring these things forth. We knew that this was not ready for adoption tonight, so the proposed or the suggestions were brought to you tonight because we knew we weren't there. So I think this is the first time we've been to a file that has gotten to this step. So I know he mentioned a year, but we haven't been here for a year. So again, I don't see the timing being off.
okay.
I think these are all very valid concerns. You know, I used to write legislation for the state of Illinois, so I understand what it's like to make sure there's no conflicts in the laws. You know, Laura, I think if you can provide some of these things that you've noticed and that the staff has noticed generally to Ken, so he can address at least some of them, I think that gives us a head start on making sure that we don't have enforceability problems. You know, I think the second line defense for that might be the UDO, right? So we
have the same thought.
yeah, so we put this in place, we address as much as we can with the proposal that we all kind of agree on, and we say to the UDO folks, see if you can find any other conflicts, and we move forward from there. I think that's, at least then we get to a point where we have something that we all would like to see for the city, instead of arguing with folks that come to us and say, it's not really a requirement.
I agree with that.
Is it possible? Because as much of a good job as we all try and do to make sure there's no conflict at all, there will be something that we missed, right?
Probably so.
Is there some language we can add to this specific issue that says if there is a conflict that we hope doesn't exist, that the final
Default to,
default to the planning reviewer for final approval? So whatever whatever you guys say, regardless if there's a conflict or not, is what goes.
I don't think I understand the question.
In other
I'm
words,
sorry.
if you're reviewing it to the best of your ability by what you believe that the ordinance says, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone says, oh, no, there's this other minute clause in the back, and you could say, well, the spirit of the code means this, and this is what you're reviewing it on.
So as the translator of the code, I will
Mhm.
tell you that in that review, if there comes any complications where I'm not certain as to what it's saying, I do default over to the city attorney for his review
Okay.
and his concept. I will say I try not to do that. That's why I work very hard to ensure that the code is very clear, to avoid that. So yeah, I will say that if there's ever a moment of conflicting language, I go back to him and he helps me with that language.
It's like a supremacy clause of some
Right.
sort,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I've seen it work in some contexts, but I would defer to the city attorney. You could always insert a sentence or some clause that says any conflict should defer to this particular section. This should control in
Right.
areas of X, Y, or Z. But I would defer to the city attorney to give us that language.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
well, I guess, we have some additional thoughts and comments here. But I guess from my side, Kenneth, and the other commissioners, are we moving towards, one of the options more than the others? And I think that's where we can start, and then go from there and start saying, okay, what do we need to add, subtract,
Sure.
sort of thing, because I think that at least gives us a good baseline to say, okay, we've moved away from the others, and this is where we want to focus on going forward.
Right, yeah, I mean, we can agree on the direction real quick, but ultimately, again, this exercise and a lot of discussions right now is really just to figure out the direction that we're gonna head on this. Obviously, there's a lot of realities and a lot of details to figure out, on it, which we want to address as best as possible. I feel like we'll be able to get there, especially if we have the UDO as a backup as well to help iron out some other things on it. But the fact that we, I think we're potentially going to agree on a direction tonight is huge in itself.
No.
Option 6.
Option one.
And we're back there.
Everybody picks one.
Right.
I mean, I hear a lot of agreement on option 2. I think as long as everyone doesn't have any objection, no individual has any objection, I think that's the direction that I'm hearing us go towards.
I agree with you.
I agree.
Well, I tend to want a little bit higher percentage, but I'm not dead fast set on that. So,
Here's an option. So the only question I've got, I like the option 2. I'll start there. But the 40% non-native allowance, is that, and this is a nuance, but 40% non-native allowance of the minimum requirement? In other words, if they were to provide 200% landscape, could you limit the 40% to just of the smaller amount that's
Like
required?
The required caliper inches is what you're talking
No.
about?
So if you've got a piece of property and you've got a certain amount of landscape percentage coverage you have to provide, is that right?
It's not so much coverage as, like he said, it's a
Okay.
caliper inches
percentage.
based on the impervious area that they've added to the site,
Yeah.
basically.
It's only
Okay.
a requirement that we've seen, right? Or is there any other requirement for amounts besides caliper inches?
And unless it was part of a zoning condition or,
Okay.
For a limited use commercial district or something like that that said, I can't think of one, but, that said they had to have so much percentage of coverage, or they have to create this buffer here. Usually it's not occasionally it's specific. You must have 3 types of evergreen trees, to create this whatever buffer.
Okay.
But it, standard is
But those would be more special situations that would come
Yes.
forward, right?
not typical,
Right.
right?
I don't want to overcomplicate it. We'll just stay with
Right.
number 2 as stated, and
Thank
then we'll develop it as we
Take them outside.
But sometimes they want to provide, usually it's a struggle to get them to provide what they're required to provide.
Right.
But
Yeah.
occasionally, they might want to provide more. So I see what you're saying about the 40% is of the required, not
Right.
of what's provided.
Yeah.
Yes, so like you said, maybe that's just a nuance in the language.
So you don't get too much.
That's a good point.
All right.
got one,
Yes,
one more question.
absolutely.
I'm leaning a little bit more and more toward the number 2, but could we have something in there that, in a way to incent them to go higher?
Well, we pushed away from that because that was part of the plan originally,
Okay.
or part of the discussion. But we pushed away from that because once you go into any of these costs between 3 and 5, then the staff has to get more involved, and you've got to decide what is the cost, where's the money going to go, who's going to make that decision.
Who administers it, yeah.
2 is the easiest
Yep.
decision maker for everyone down the line.
Understood.
Yeah.
And there still is the tree fund for if they come under.
And I just thought of that as far as your percentages go. What if they're only able to fit on the site 50% of what's required? Then how do we work those calculations of
Well, it was
required
right now, it's
native?
just really nice and simple. 60% of whatever they're proposing needs to be native, right? That's how I read it.
That's the way how I read it
Yeah.
as well.
So it's not 60% of what's required, it's 60% of what's on the
Oh, okay.
landscape plan. Nice and easy.
That makes more sense.
Perfect.
Keep it simple.
Okay.
So we're good with moving forward with
I
number
think
2?
I think we're in agreement for number 2.
All right.
Yeah.
Ken,
Option
this was
2.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you
Ken.
guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys for participating in this. This is good.
Absolutely.
Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Thank you for your points, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. So I will say this, I'm going to put my best foot forward in writing this. For city staff, I will loop you into this as well for feedback and opinions. And again, any information that you've already pulled together, which you've already covered tonight, please send my way so that way I can start incorporating this on it. And again, I'll just do what I can for it as best as possible, and we'll keep debating it, the actual details.
So from the proposed ordinance standpoint, do we want to go ahead and discuss anything in there? Because I know as staff brought up, with the applicability of section 1135, I do have a couple points I'd like to kind
Sure.
of talk about.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, and I think most of this is fine. I think it needs to be maybe rewritten or reworded just a bit because it does contain residential
Oh,
items in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so looking at the subdivision common areas, I think we need to go ahead and remove that requirement.
sure.
And then the other thing, when it comes into the other item is the parking lot landscapes and required tree islands, I think we need to go ahead and make that the same. So we may have maybe a sub item under that, commercial, office, industrial developments, and then say, parking lot landscapes and the tree islands, because in my neighborhood, we have a building, we have a, clubhouse, and there's a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if we went forward with this, it would actually apply to parking lot landscapes for our clubhouse area. And I don't think that that's really something we need to be looking at.
Yeah, it's not.
So,
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
And by the way, we treat those as commercial projects, the amenity areas, when they have a full-blown clubhouse and pool and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. We look at we do site plan, like development plan reviews on that, and they'll be, I believe they're required to do a landscape plan for that.
okay, well, that is good to know if you could
Let me
confirm that.
confirm that.
Because I know the HOA is in the process, there's a lot of old trees and shrubs and everything that need to be removed and new plantings made. So if that is a requirement, I'd like to let them know before they go any further, quite honestly. I think really those were the only items, because it says, this ordinance does not apply to individual residential yards. And again, that's what I was looking at for, neighborhood entrances and things. It would be nice, to see some native, and it's always, you can put recommended. But to hold them fast and strong to that, I think would be something we probably don't want to do.
I would agree.
Let me point out another requirement in case you want to consider this. New single-family lots are required to have, when all is said and done, 2 trees 2 inches in caliber. So, and it's inspected by the senior code enforcement officer when the project is complete to make sure they've got the 2 trees. If you could, if you wanted, require that those be native. It's just 2 trees.
I think the only thing is that now you're crossing over again into the residential, because if it's not and somebody goes and puts new trees in, do we say, well, you're putting new trees in, therefore it's a new planting, therefore they need to be,
It opens up
yeah.
a lot of things.
It's the slippery slope,
Yeah, I think for another day.
Yeah.
Well, I know my neighborhood has a list. If you replace your tree, it has to be one of these, so.
Yeah.
That's true. We might be competing with the HOAs, so we don't want to do that.
easier
Yeah.
not to, probably, yeah.
Well, I think this is a great place, and thank you for all the work that you've done on this. I know it started off, goodness, it has been a while. It started off as just an invasive, ban, which is something we definitely need. And it's growing since, and it's growing in a good way. So, Kenneth,
Great.
thank you for all the
Yeah.
work you've done, and the commissioners and staff, for all the input that they've had over the time we've been working on this.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys have been really good.
Ken, can I ask, where are your lists coming from? Are you taking that from
Athens Clark.
Okay, so do we need, I'm going to kind of ask, do we need anything specific to come from this, a recommendation?
No, not at this time. We'll be speaking with Kenneth moving
Okay.
forward about some of the things that Laura has brought up, as well as what direction you have mentioned tonight. We'll be also involving the other staff members as well, just to make sure that they're on the same page with us. So we may reach out to have some type of discussion with everyone. Well,
And-
Yeah.
Kenneth,
Yeah, and like you said, there may be some notes that we need to put in there, if there's any conflict between, the erosion control manuals. The erosion control manuals are first and foremost, you default to those. So, I mean, there's probably some additional language that needs to be, and I know you do
Yeah.
have some footnotes and things in here, so.
What I'll probably do is I'll probably write a brand new version of the ordinance, knowing it's not gonna be great, for a starting point, and then work with city staff accordingly from there. Then bring it back, and we can talk about the way it's set up, and if it passes muster from there,
I expect we'll be pretty close at that point, I would think,
hopefully.
from where we're at. Yeah, I think we would be. Okay. If there's nothing else on old agenda, we don't have anything for new agenda. We don't have any public hearings this evening. Do we have any member or staff topics?
not at this time. I know that we did send out clarification on the training.
Mhm.
I've received 2 comments back for those who would like to attend, but if anyone else would like to, that offer is still open.
Okay, I need to go back and take a look at my calendar for that. Any other items for this evening, commissioners?
Do we know what's on the next agenda, just out of curiosity?
Oh, gosh.
Quite a bit?
We're full.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why we did this time.
Yeah, okay, good.
So, we-
And what are the dates of the next meeting?
March 9th is the next meeting, and we do have a UDO meeting following that. There will be at least 3 items. 2 landscape plans and Bradshaw Estates coming back March 9th.
Okay.
There was something else, but we've only recently received it. Some minor building elevation modifications, I think that will move into the 23rd. So, 3 items plus UDO meeting.
Great, thank you.
Shayla, on the training, is that ever held locally, or is it always in Lawrence? 'Cause
It's-
I'm not going to Lawrence.
Local, as in Metro Atlanta,
Like down here.
like Metro Atlanta, like North Gwinnett County.
The answer is no.
No, it's a drive.
It is. I guess I was fortunate at the time that it was during the pandemic that it was held online, which was good in many ways, but it was unfortunate in many ways that we weren't able to get with the other people and actually meet them in person. So it was still really good information
It
and
is
good
really
learning.
worth the drive. The instructor
It
is
really
amazing.
Yeah.
it's
Is it the
true.
same instructor who
Yes,
does?
Chrissy
Yeah.
Marlowe.
Yeah,
She's great. She's
was
great.
very good, even
She is.
online. Yeah.
She is.
Are they
Yep.
half-day sessions or full-day sessions?
They're full day.
Full day.
It's very good. It's a very good program. Yeah.
It is. Like I said, I've only done 101. I'm looking to do 102. But yeah, if for good starting point, 101 is excellent. It really is. Yep.
It is.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Okay. If there's nothing else, anything from staff?
Nope, not
Nothing
at
else?
this time.
Okay.
I'll move to adjourn.
So we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.